Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum viewers. Welcome to my channel. This is Professor Musaddiq Farooq with lecture number 2 for the series of lectures that I have started in order to help you prepare for the test that is going to be conducted by Punjab Public Service Commission very soon. And as in the previous lecture, here too you can see on the starting screen I have added a motivational tag in order to motivate you people. It says be proud of how hard you are working. You must take pride in what you are doing, and by dint of that hard work you must believe in yourself, your capabilities, your faculties, and do not be disappointed by anything that goes against your wishes, that goes against your desires. In this lecture we are going to conclude the Anglo-Saxon age. This is a second part of the same age. I added 25 MCQs in my previous lecture, and in this lecture you will see 20 more questions. I advised you in my introductory lecture of this series that you must read as much as possible. Do not search for the shortcuts to success because there is not any, and even if you are successful in this way, you will not be able to make any convincing impression neither upon others nor upon yourself. Well, as far as exams are concerned, if you are planning to apply for these exams, for PPSC exams, keep reading as much as possible. And in the next lecture, lecture number 3, I shall make some multiple choice questions from Middle Ages, the age that spans from Norman conquest in 1066 up to the beginning of in the middle of 14th century when Chaucer started writing. Before started solving the MCQs here, I would like to request you people that if you like my videos, please subscribe my channel. Do not forget to do it, and also press the bell icon that is present just beside that subscribe button. Now without any delay we shall start solving the multiple choice questions that are designed by me for this lecture. And the first thing you must have noticed here on this screen is that this screen is starting from question number 26. This is not a mistake on my side, right? This is just a continuation of what I have done in the previous lecture. I have given you 25 multiple choice questions from Anglo-Saxon age in my previous lecture, and I'm starting from 26th so that we know precisely how many MCQs we have attempted from certain age, and this exactly will be the pattern that will be followed by me in the upcoming lectures. If you are coming straight to this lecture, it is highly advisable that first you should go to the second lecture, previous lecture, and solve all 25 MCQs there, or at least read them and then come here for the solution of next MCQs that are present here in this lecture. So without wasting any more time, let's start, and I will remind you here that again you will find 30 seconds for 2 questions for one slide. If there are 2 questions on one slide, you will find 30 seconds. You will be given 30 seconds, and again, if you feel that you want more time, you can pause the video and have as much time as possible, but it is advisable not to spend more than 72 seconds per question, because this is what I have told you in the previous lecture, that you have 2 hours 100 questions, and if you calculate the time, you have only 72 seconds for one question, right? Not more than 72 seconds. So let's start now. Alright, after going through all the questions, now you must start solving them, and we will do it together now. But before starting the solution, I would like to repeat some tips and tricks that I have mentioned in my previous lectures. The first is that if you find that any question has started confusing you and you are in doubt about the options which are provided to you, you must leave it alone for the time being and come back to it in your second round, because if you are successful in attempting 55 to 60 correct questions, then you do not need to attempt anything in addition to it, because any wrong attempt will snatch marks from your earned marks. And the second thing is that if you find that more than one option is correct, then you must search for an option that accommodates both of them. For example, A and B both are correct according to you, then you must search for an option that accommodates both of them and says both A and B. If there is no such option, then you must select only one of them, right? Not both, because you cannot fill both circles, more than one circle in any given question. Alright, and the third thing was that do not jump to conclusion. If you feel that the very first option that you come across is correct according to you, do not skip reading the other options, right? This is because you have to choose the best option, right? And it might happen that the first option that you have come across is not the best one. It is a good one, but it is not the best one, right? Alright, let's proceed to solving the MCQs that were available in this lecture. Junius manuscript contains Genesis, a poem based on Old Testament. There is one Old Testament and one New Testament in Bible, and composed around the end of the 9th or 10th century. How long is the Cadmonian poem? Cadmon was a person who was inspired in his dream when he was there in a monastery in Whitby, and he was given the gift of song there. Before that, it is said that he was not able to even sing a single line, and he was humiliation in every performance. But after that, he became a very famous reciter and singer. We have read that about in the first lecture. Cadmon, he was the person, certainly. And now about the solution. Nearly 2,000 lines were there in that poem. Is it correct? No. 5,000 lines? No. 8,000 lines? No. And 3,000 lines, of course, yes. Next question is, which of the following incidents is a part of Christian tradition rather than biblical source, but mentioned almost in every related narrative? The first is fall of Adam and Eve. There is little doubt that this definitely this thing has been mentioned in Bible, so we cannot say that this thing is not mentioned, right? The question is, which of the following incidents is a part of Christian tradition rather than a biblical source? It is definitely biblical source and not Christian tradition, so this is not a correct option for us. Now beta option is Satan's rebellion along with his followers. Is it correct? Yes, it is definitely correct, because he was asked to bend before Adam, pay a sajda to him, but he refused, and definitely then he was rejected by God Almighty as that archangel. Now the Charlie option, there was a mistake. Definitely I added Adam and Eve later on. Temptation of Adam and Eve, this was also definitely mentioned, and after that they were denied the joys of heaven. Fall of Satan. Now this is something that has not been given in Bible or even in Holy Quran. I'm referring to incident that is mentioned in Paradise Lost. Definitely all of you must have read that when he falls into hell and then he wakes up and makes some very rhetorical speeches. That is not a part of either Bible or even the Holy Quran. That has been an interpolation of somebody else. The next question was, what kind of evidence supports the view that Exodus, this is also a poem, is the oldest Anglo-Saxon poem based on biblical source? It dates back to the 8th century, that is why it is the oldest one. And now, is it the form of the poetry that is given as the evidence? No. Linguistic evidence? Yes, it is. And if linguistic evidence is correct, then it means that all the remaining options are incorrect. Linguistic evidence means that the form of language that is used, the type of language that is used, does not have any changes that occurred in the language with the progression, with the passage of time. Now archaeological, option C says archaeological, it means anything related to excavation, archaeological evidence, and none of these, of course. It is also not correct. Next question was, who produced religious poetry in Old English language in the 9th century, and he is regarded as the first Anglo-Saxon poet to sign his works? John Wycliffe? No, because he lived in 14th century. At the end of the 14th century, he translated the Bible from Latin into English, so definitely he has nothing to do with the Anglo-Saxon era. Then B option is Wycliffe, right? Wycliffe. Is it correct? No, again it is not correct. Wycliffe is not correct. Who was Wycliffe, by the way? It is also a point to be noted here. You must remember who Wycliffe was. Wycliffe was the person who was the heir of Beowulf. In that legend of Beowulf, in that poem, it is said that before dying, Beowulf specified that the next king would be Wycliffe, next king of Geats. Cynewulf. Now definitely this option is correct. If this is correct, it means King Alfred is not correct. Who was King Alfred? I will not tell you here because there are some questions in the upcoming slides, and I will tell you in detail who King Alfred was there. Christ, Juliana, Eileen, and the Fates of the Apostles are the 4 Anglo-Saxon poems often attributed to Cynewulf. Which of the following points is wrong about the poetry? Now, also in the previous lecture, I told you that there are many pieces of information provided within the questions. I also could have made many more questions from this information that I have presented before you in these lectures, but then I thought that this will make the lecture unnecessarily long. So I have put some information within the questions and asked for some information that is related to that statement, that information. Now, which of the following points is wrong about the poetry? It's just overt classical influence. Overt means expressed, that is evident, apparent, that can be seen easily, that is not hidden. Alright, it's just overt classical influence. Classical means he was influenced by Latin and Greek poets, and it is correct. He was influenced, it means, and we have to choose which of the following points is wrong about his poetry. It is not wrong, it is correct. It means that this option cannot be chosen here. Alright. Heroic elements of Germanic origin are replaced by contemplative tone. This is also correct about his poetry. So this is not wrong, not the option here for us. It is written in acrostic form. What is acrostic form? Acrostic form means writing poetry in such a way that the first letter of every line, when combined, all the letters that start every line of the poem make a different word, right? If there are 4 lines, you will have to take the first letter of every line, and when they are combined, they make some separate different word, and that is the code that has to be deciphered, that has to be decoded in order to understand that poem clearly. And that is how he used to sign his work, Cynewulf, right? This was his typical way to sign his poems. If we read the poetry that was written by Cynewulf, it contains acrostic signs that it was written by that poet. So it is also correct. He did write in that way. It is not wrong. That's why we will not choose this option too. It is a pioneer of romantic tendency in literature. No. This is of course wrong. He did not exhibit any romantic tendency in his poetry, so we cannot say that. That is wrong, and this is the answer of this question. The next thing is, which of the following elements is missing from heroic and religious poetry predominating early Anglo-Saxon era? Right? In early age of Anglo-Saxons, mostly there was heroic poetry or religious poetry. What was missing in that poetry? Was that exploration of personal emotions by means of lyrical poetry? Yes. And if we say yes to this options, it means that all the other options are automatically correct, but there is no harm in discussing it. Imaginative element, right? There can be hardly any poetry without this element, so imaginative element definitely was there. Artistic mastery, there is no doubt about it that artistic mastery was also present in the Anglo-Saxon poetry. And allusions, what are allusions? These are references. References are also abound in Anglo-Saxon poetry, references to all the old Germanic legends. One of the following poems brings out the lament, right, sadness, mourning of a solitary person who had once been happy in the service of his Lord, but after the death of his Lord takes the path of exile and recalls the departed joys. What is the title of that poem in which all these things happened. The Seafarer, The Wanderer, Daniel, Judith. One of them is correct. Which one of that is? It is The Wanderer. All the other options are, of course, incorrect. Which of the following poems depicts a monologue of a sailor, right? A sailor who is at sea, who recalls the hardships of his life at sea, being fascinated by the same simultaneously. At the same time, he is fascinated, but at the same time, he is sad. Is it The Wanderer? The Wanderer has already been mentioned in the question number 32, and that has some different situation. We have already read that. So Wanderer cannot be the option here. Decameron. Now this is a poem. I think I didn't spell it correctly, but this is not the correct option. I tell you about this. This was written by Boccaccio, and it was a role model that was taken by Geoffrey Chaucer for his Canterbury Tales. So again, this is not the option here. The Seafarer. This is the correct option. Exodus is not correct. It means that we have option C as our correct option here. In which of the following manuscripts do we find the Wanderer and the Seafarer? Now these four manuscripts should not be new to you, because I have already mentioned all these four in my previous lecture, and it is the Exeter book, right? This is the correct option. All the other options are incorrect, and there is hardly anything to be discussed here. The next thing is, in addition to the poems mentioned in question number 34, the wife's lament, the husband's message, Wolf, Eadmund, and the ruin are examples of what? What poetry? What kind of poetry? That, though not as characteristic of Anglo-Saxon literature, occupies an indispensable part of it. Now to answer this question, bring all these poems into your mind: The Wanderer, The Seafarer, The Wife's Lament, The Husband's Message, Wolf and Adversary, and The Ruin. All these things represent some one thing, right? Examples of what kind of poetry? Elegiac poetry. Elegiac is from elegy. Elegy is something that expresses some sort of sadness and some sort of tragedy, some grief, or something that has been lost. So is it correct? Of course it is the correct option, and all the other options are incorrect, but we will discuss them. Reprobate and lambasting both almost mean the same thing. Reprobate is something that has been rejected, and lambasting means criticizing severely and even beating. None of these, again, it is not correct option, because we have chosen one, elegiac, because it is from elegy and this expresses sadness. We have already read that The Wanderer and Seafarer, definitely they are very sad poems. Now the next question is, for the first time in Old English literature, a sense of nationalism emerges at the Anglo-Saxon poetry, right? Okay, I think it is at the end of Anglo-Saxon period, not in the poetry, right? Then it is correct, at the end of Anglo-Saxon period. Which of the following words highlights the attribute? What attribute? The sense of nationalism. The Battle of Brunabuh. The Battle of Brunabuh, Athelstan and Eadmund, the Battle of Maldon, Abel and Cain. Which of the following options is correct? The first option is correct. The Battle of Brunabuh. Athelstan and Eadmund, these are actually two characters that are present within that Battle of Brunabuh. This is a poem, and these two are characters, so this is not correct option. The Battle of Maldon was a later poem, but it does not have any nationalistic attitude. It was just like old heroic poetry that was present in the early period of Anglo-Saxon age. And Abel and Cain, again, is not correct option, because they said that they were sons of Adam and Eve, first two sons. They fought with each other, and it is said that that fight was the first fight of humanity. King what? What king who ruled from 871 to 899 AD is known to have initiated literary prose in English literature? Right? Who was the first one to initiate literary prose? Because before that time there was only poetry. Who was the first one to initiate prose in English literature? It was nobody else but King Alfred. Right? Who was it? King Alfred. Alright. Here a bird's eye view seems to reveal that option B and C are the same. You can see B Cracticus, but Charlie is Craticus. Although they spell differently, but both of them refer to the same personality in history. He was the person who was there in the 1st century Anno Domini, and he resisted Roman invasion, right? When Romans invaded Britain, he was someone who resisted strongly, and he was a tribal chief. Alright, here were the Vague. As far as this person is concerned, he was somewhere in 11th century, and he resisted Norman invasion. So definitely they had something to do with nationalistic attitude. But it was right King Alfred, who lived in the 9th century. He was responsible for initiating prose in English literature. The next question says, which of the following poem was translated by Tennyson into modern English? Now all the other options except for the option B are incorrect. Alright, incorrect. Only one option is the Battle of Brunabuh. The next question is, most of the early prose work is what? Translation, imitation, creation, or paraphrasing? Translation is definitely not anything that is new for you, and this was what was done by King Alfred and his associates. So this is the correct option. All the other options are of course incorrect. Imitations means copying. This was the definition of literature that was presented by Plato, that literature is imitation of reality, and tragedy was imitation of an action that is serious, complete in itself, has some magnitude, and so on. And of course creation and paraphrasing means making some new sentences from the same sense, but language remains the same language, right? If something is written in English language, paraphrasing will also be done in English language, but it may happen that if something is written in poetry, the paraphrasing may be in the form of prose, but language essentially remains the same. The next question is, King Alfred mostly concentrated on the translation of later Latin works and not the original sources of Christian culture. How did he justify this choice? Why did he do this? Ancient wisdom was distilled in these works. They were most suitable for the purpose of translation. These works were aesthetically pleasing, means they were beautiful, they were rhetorical. It was pleasing for one to recite it, and it was pleasing to others, for others to hear, and he personally liked them. One of the options that is correct is the first one, and the other options are of course incorrect. All the other options are incorrect. Alright, the next question. Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, a great record of a long series of incidents from the 1st to the middle of the 12th century, was created in the reign of which king? King Alfred, Elizabeth II, George I? None of these. Of course, King Alfred is the right option. All the other options are incorrect. Elizabeth II, it is very funny choice, because Elizabeth II is the queen who is now on the throne in England and Great Britain. George I ruled from 1714 to 1727. So again, it is something that happened 700 to 800 later. So again, this option is not correct, and none of these again incorrect. For translation of a Latin work, Cur Pastoralis, King Alfred sought help from many associates, many helpers, assistants. Choose the best reason. What was the reason that he needed some helpers? King Alfred was late in learning Latin. Yes, it was so. All the other options are automatically incorrect. He wanted to get his work proofread. Alright, no. He wanted some witnesses of his work. No, and none of these again not correct. The last slide, last three questions are there before us. Which of the following philosophical works translated into Old English by Alfred was later on translated by Chaucer too? Geoffrey Chaucer also translated some work from these four, and the first option, that is the Consolation Philosophy, the Consolation of Philosophy, this is the correct option. All the other options are incorrect. Soliloquies, and Boethius, of course, it is not correct, and Blossoms is also not correct. Blossom was the last work that was translated by King Alfred into English from Latin. And as far as the Charlie option is concerned, which option? Boethius. He was the writer of this work, De Consolation Philosophia. Second last question is, which of the following forms of poetry is not found in Anglo-Saxon age? Heroic poetry? And there is a lot of it, right? Heroic poetry abounds in Anglo-Saxon age. Mock epic is something that is not found there, so this is of course the form of poetry that is not found. Alright, and all other forms are there. Religious poetry, of course, lyrical poetry and ballads. Lyrical poetry was there in The Wanderer and The Seafarer, in which personal emotions were explored. But ballads, where have we mentioned ballads? We have not mentioned them anywhere, but it is said that Beowulf, the greatest epic of that age, was originally transferred orally from one generation to another in the form of ballads, and later on it was composed by somebody and made into an epic, a full-scale epic. So again, it is not the option, it was there in the Anglo-Saxon age. Last question is, Norman conquest of England took place in what year? Now this is a question that is going to connect us with this in the next lecture, because this is the year from which our next age is going to start. Now the important thing that is evident about these two ages, and that differentiates and divides, draws a clear boundary line between these two ages, Anglo-Saxon and then Anglo-Norman, is 1066. And what is that? In the first part, Latin language was more of the influence, and in the later part, Anglo-Norman age, French language was more important influence on the evolution of English language. So I have already told you the option is 1066. This is the correct option. All other options are of course incorrect. Again, I requested you in the last lecture that if you have any suggestion about how to proceed this preparation series, you can definitely mention it in comment section. And also I also have a Facebook account that is also with my name, Siddiq Farooq. You can type in Facebook, and you can message me there. You can contact me. Feel free to ask anything. And at the end, again, there is an invitation for you to be a regular part of this lecture series by subscribing my channel, and also by hitting a bell icon so that you do not miss any upcoming video. Till then, goodbye, take care, Allah Hafiz.